To Building Business with Soul with Coach Arliss. This is a show where we will dive into the soulful approach to business, get nerdy with some brain science, and learn the nuts and bolts of how business owners build success through their passion. Let's take a moment to get focused and centered with one round of box breathing, where we will breathe in for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4. Let me start again. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and breathe out for a count of 4. Let's begin. Breathing in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out for 1, 2, 3, 4. Fantastic. Today, we're going to be focusing on boundary setting in business and why boundary setting is important. Boundaries are the psychological demarcation that protects the integrity of an individual or group, or that helps a person or group set realistic limits on participation in a relationship or activity or in business. Boundaries are defined as rules or limits that someone establishes to protect their security and well-being around others. We identify and express how other people can behave around us so that we can feel safe. And this is really important in business, especially if you are an entrepreneur who is serving clients. It's really critically important that you have boundaries around the times that you're available and when you're available to those clients. A boundary is a limit or space between you and the other person, a clear place where you begin and the other person ends. The purpose of setting healthy boundaries is, of course, to protect you, to protect your business, and to take really good care of yourself. Because we know that we cannot do anything in our business unless we are taking really, really good care of ourselves. Unhealthy boundaries involve a disregard for your own or others' values, wants, needs, and limits. Unhealthy boundaries can also lead to potentially negative interactions or negative relationships with clients or customers, and it increases the chances that this negativity might spread into other areas in our life other than our businesses. Healthy boundaries are essential if we want to be both physically and emotionally healthy in our business. So creating healthy boundaries helps to empower you to really show up fully in your business. When we recognize the need to set and enforce a limit, we are able to allow ourselves to feel protected, to maintain self-respect, and to enjoy the relationships that we have with our clients and customers, colleagues, or bosses even more. So why are boundaries so scary? Many entrepreneurs say that they have a hard time setting boundaries and that it's really scary for them to do so. Well, when we set boundaries, it means that we either want to change or are willing to sacrifice something in order to hold space. And this sacrifice may be sacrificing things, places, sacrificing time, or relationships to maintain our individual joy and health. This is where the fear comes in, because when we create change or we create a sense of loss, this can create a feeling of negativity for ourselves or for the other people experiencing us setting a boundary. And we might be thinking to ourselves, what if people don't respect our boundaries? What if I uphold a boundary around when I'm able to return phone calls or emails, or when I'm available to my clients or customers, and they don't respect that boundary, or they don't like that boundary and they just go away? This can be a real fear for entrepreneurs. It can also be fearful of, what happens if we end up in scarcity mindset due to fear of setting our boundaries. So, what are the biggest barriers to setting boundaries for most entrepreneurs? Well, number one is fear of rejection from clients and customers. So, this is something to just be aware of in yourself. Are you afraid of upholding those boundaries around your working hours or around the products and services that you offer because you're afraid that clients will reject you and not want to be your client anymore? Number two is fear of confrontation or upsetting someone else. So when we are setting boundaries, we fear that this will create a confrontational moment, and many people have fear of confrontation. Many entrepreneurs also feel a sense of shame or guilt when upholding boundaries. And then the last biggest barrier to upholding boundaries or setting boundaries is feeling like I'm just not sure how to do it. And so that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about how to overcome those barriers and how to set really clear boundaries. So, how do we overcome those barriers to setting boundaries? Well, number one, be clear on what your needs and wants are and which ones are not being met. So, how does this relate to being in business? So, we need to be clear with the people that are in our businesses. What is it that we expect as far as behavior or engagement? What level of engagement or time are we willing to invest? And to uphold that with people through clear description. We want to give people the roadmap for how to uphold our boundaries. We don't want to make it vague or have them guessing, because guess what? If they're guessing, they're probably going to guess wrong because they most likely have guessed wrong in the past. Or we wouldn't have the need to explain that we have a boundary in this area. Another way to overcome a barrier to setting boundaries is to believe that you are worthy and deserving of having your boundaries respected. So you are worthy and deserving of having clear working hours, of having clear demarcation between the time when you are on and available and when you are off and you are having time to yourself. You are also worthy and deserving of being able to offer the products and services that you believe in and that you really want to offer and provide, and not feel as though you have to provide products or services that you don't believe in or you just don't enjoy providing. Another way to overcome barriers to setting boundaries is to identify what myths are you believing about boundaries and why that you feel that they are true for you. So are you believing that if you set a boundary that it's selfish? Or maybe you're believing that if you set a boundary that you are intentionally causing conflict. Neither one of those are true. They're both myths, but there may be myths around boundaries that you're believing. So why have you decided that that's true for you? Once you've gone through that process, you can then decide to make a change and look at boundaries in a different and healthier way. The last way to overcome the biggest barriers to boundary setting is to be realistic and grounded in the assessment of the situation and not to catastrophize. A lot of times when we are going through the process of wanting to set a boundary, we are thinking of, well, if this thing happened that's way off in the distance, way down the road, the worst possible thing, then of course I want to set this boundary. And then when we go through the process of setting the boundary, we may come off much harsher than we originally intend, because we are thinking about the worst possible circumstance of if the boundary is crossed or if the boundary is not upheld. Whereas if we can be grounded and assess the situation for what it is, we're much more likely to be able to communicate our boundary in a clear way that is also kind and compassionate towards the other people that we're explaining and sharing that boundary with, and to ourselves. So, what are the 10 steps to strong boundary setting? Well, number 1, name your limits. Number 2, tune into your feelings. If you are feeling angry or disappointed or sad or frustrated, it's likely because you have a boundary that you're not upholding. So, what would that boundary be? It's important to use your feelings as flags to let you know that that boundary is there, and then you have the choice to uphold it or not. Number 3 is be direct about what your boundary is. Again, we don't want to leave people guessing. We don't want to leave it unclear. We want to give people the exact roadmap as to how to uphold the boundary that we're giving them and make it really easy for people, because that's what we would want as well. Number 4, practice self-awareness. Okay, so are there times when you don't uphold your boundary in your business? Can you be more self-aware in those moments and know that you are making that choice? Because once you begin to have that awareness, then you can make a different choice instead. 5, make sure that you are allowing yourself to feel your feelings so that you can use them as those flags to notice if there are boundaries that need to be set and upheld. Consider your past and present. Okay, so have you upheld boundaries in the past? If not, why is that? And how would you like to uphold boundaries now? Number 7, make sure that you're taking care of yourself along the way and that you are doing your best to meet your needs and wants as you are upholding your boundaries. Number 8, find support. You can even ask a friend to be an accountability partner and say, hey, I have this one client and I have a really hard time telling this client no. The next time that I'm talking about this client, can you ask me about if I am upholding my boundary around not doing these other services, and see if I'm saying the word no like I really want to be? Number 9 is be assertive. Now, this is not necessarily being aggressive or unkind, but it is being strong and standing in your power around what really works for you and what doesn't. And number 10 is to start small. So start with a small boundary with a person in your business that you feel safe with, that you already have good communication with, and work with them first, and then go to bigger boundaries and maybe with people that you don't know as well, and grow your skills around boundary setting in that way. I encourage you to take a moment today to recognize one thing that you appreciate about yourself. You are doing so much to support yourself and your business. You deserve a little appreciation too. Thank you for joining me, Coach Arliss, on Building Business with Soul. If you would like to learn more about how I support entrepreneurs, please check out my website, soullutions.com. That's SOULLUTIONS.com. Join me next week when we dive into more soulful approaches to business.